This episode is brought to you by Amazon Business. How can you free up your team from time-consuming office tasks? Amazon Business empowers leaders to not only streamline purchasing, but better support their teams so they can focus on strategy and growth. Free up your teams and focus on your future. Learn more about the technology, insights, and support available at amazonbusiness.com.
Richard Nixon.
Well, I'm not a crook.
Ronald Reagan.
Tear down this wall.
George W. Bush.
I can hear you. The rest of the world hears you.
And Donald Trump.
And a friend of mine for a long time, he only likes politics. If you ask him about how are the Yankees doing, he has no interest. If you ask him almost anything, he likes politics, and he's a professional at the highest level. Roger Stone.
All of these presidents relied on one man to secure their seat in the Oval Office. That man is Roger Stone. This is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome on this beautiful Sunday. I'm Roger Stone, and yes, this is the Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC, the most dynamic and influential radio station on the face of the planet. Let me urge you to take a quick minute to go over to the App Store and download the 77 WABC radio app. That way you won't miss any of the extraordinary talk or entertainment that we have here on the crown jewel of AM radio, 77 WABC. I was born in Norwalk, Connecticut, baptized in St. Mary's Church in Norwalk, had my first Holy Communion and confirmation at St. Aloysius in New Canaan, Connecticut, all here within the WABC listening area. I spoke recently at a Catholic conference about my ethnicity.
Look, I'm proud of my Catholic heritage. I am half Italian and half Hungarian. I'm Italian from the waist down.
I'm particularly proud of my Hungarian heritage, half Hungarian, half Italian, specifically half Hungarian, half Sicilian. I had an uncle that said, well, when you're half Hungarian and half Sicilian, that means we're very sentimental when we stab you in the chest. But all kidding aside, there are no great Hungarian restaurants left in the greater New York City area. In fact, there are no great Hungarian restaurants anywhere in the United States. The last one I'm aware of, it closed in Cleveland, Ohio. So I'm going to give you today my very own mother's Hungarian stuffed cabbage recipe before the end of the show. Now, this is a complicated recipe, unlike most of the simple recipes that we give here on the Roger Stone Show. So you might want to grab a pen and paper now and be prepared, because by the end of the show, I'm going to give you the recipe for the greatest stuffed cabbage you have ever had in your life. My Hungarian grandmother was named Mezzo, actually. Well, that was her maiden name. She was married to Kardos first, but she evidently dumped him and retook her maiden name. My grandmother hated communists, and after FDR gave Russia control of Hungary after World War II, she became even more hardline. She was a tough woman. She drove this great Austin American four-door sedan. I remember very distinctly that she was still driving in her 90s, and she would have accidents, but rather than go ahead and declare it on insurance, she would just pay anyone she injured. Ultimately, we got her driver's license away from her. I remember when she was hospitalized, she convinced one of her friends, a woman we called my Aunt Ida, to bring a pair of shears into the hospital so that she could cut the intravenous, intravenous cords that the doctors had attached to her. One very tough woman. That's why the idea during the Mueller investigation that I was accused of Russian collusion was particularly offensive. You see, my relatives in Budapest were mowed down by Russian tanks. The trial similarities going on between what's happening to Donald Trump in New York this past week and what happened to me are extraordinarily similar. I was gagged and not allowed to defend myself in public. Donald Trump is gagged and not able to defend himself in public. My lawyers made a motion for the judge to recuse herself after she made numerous prejudicial comments in front of the jury, and she refused. Donald Trump moved to recuse Judge Juan Merchan over the fact that the judge not only made prejudicial comments, but he also gave a campaign contribution to Joe Biden's presidential campaign, not to mention the fact that his daughter, an adult, is a Democrat political consultant, and that she has made as much as $93 million for her clients by using this New York case as the selling point of her fundraising. That's an egregious conflict of interest, but the judge refuses to recuse himself. Then you have the extraordinary bias of the jurors. You saw one juror late last week who had already been selected basically giving an interview in which they made it clear that they hate Donald Trump. This is the same phenomena I saw in my trial. The jury forewoman, woman named Tomika Hart, well, she had been a Democrat candidate for Congress in Tennessee. She was a protege of the Democrat political strategist Donna Brazile. Prominent picture of she and Brazile on her Facebook, but of course we didn't know that at the time because she had her Facebook on a private setting. In fact, the jury forewoman in my case, Tomika Hart, had attacked both me and President Donald Trump by name in both her Twitter and her Facebook profiles, but she kept those on a private setting during jury selection and during the trial, and she only got caught by the independent journalist Mike Cernovich when she tried to delete those postings. Very similar to the fact that Donald Trump now has jurors who have posted anti-Trump stuff on social media. Now, the judge in my case ruled incredibly that this lies by the jury forewoman did not constitute any kind of legal bias. In fact, Tomika Hart, the jury forewoman, only became a public issue when she sought to defend the prosecutors in my case who issued a sentencing guideline memo urging that I get 7 to 9 years because they said I had been convicted of being involved in foreign interference in our elections, which of course I was neither charged nor convicted of. So I'm beginning to think that this Trump case is the template, the dry run for or I should say my case was the template, the dry run, and it is amazing that they are using the exact same tactics against Donald Trump that they used against me. I don't believe that a jury can be selected in Manhattan in which Trump will get a fair trial. On the other hand, this case has no underlying crime. Even if Donald Trump was guilty of those things he is accused of, and there's very substantial doubt about that, this would be at best a business records case, a civil case. But Alvin Bragg, contrary to the conclusions of the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York, contrary to the Federal Election Commission inquiry. Alvin Bragg has decided to bring a case and bump it up to a criminal case, calling this quote-unquote crime a felony. It's also interesting the way that the judge in my case ruled out certain defenses. So, for example, I was not allowed to prove with forensic evidence or with expert testimony that there never was any online hack of the Republican National Committee. And therefore it would have been impossible for me to have received hacked material and passed it on to anyone save the Trump campaign. By the way, the government never produced any evidence that I had done anything of the kind. In fact, on November 3rd, 2020, only by court order, the Department of Justice was forced to release at midnight, strange time to put out a press release, a statement that included all of the unredacted sections of Mr. Mueller's report, in which even he could not sugarcoat the fact that he had found no evidence of Russian collusion, WikiLeaks collaboration, or any other crime. Now the prosecutors in Donald Trump's case and the judge have limited the material that he can issue or have admitted at court in his own defense. So, for example, the conclusions by the U.S. Attorney in the Southern District of New York and the conclusions of the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, both of whom investigated this matter, cannot be submitted as evidence in the case. Pretty amazing. My lawyer, Tyler Nixon, joins us today on the Roger Stone Show to talk about the strange similarities in the Soviet-style show trial that we see going on in New York and the dry run they had, the template, in my case. Amazing similarities. O.J. Simpson died last week. O.J. Simpson had some very unkind things to say about me. Listen to this.
Let me say this. I got raided by the FBI in Miami. 30-something FBI agents, 5 o'clock in the morning. I had more than dogs. I had kids there. They were a little traumatized. And my friend, he got raided too. For nothing, that SEC task force, they were wrong. You never heard another word about it after the media made a big deal out of them in there. So the FBI can be wrong, But to try to compare it to El Chapo and Bin Laden, hey, man, Bin Laden was carried out in a bag, not walked out in handcuffs. So, man up. Stop crying.
All right.
Nonetheless, I pray not only for O.J. Simpson, but more so for the people that I absolutely believe he murdered. In my 1995 book, The Clintons' War on Women, I was among the first authors in the country to expose the Jeffrey Epstein scandal. The first reporter, Nick Bryant, writing for Gawker to cover the Epstein scandal, who was on this show only weeks ago, wrote some groundbreaking pieces for Gawker. I utilized those with attribution in my book, but I was the first author in the country to outline Epstein's criminal child sex trafficking. I revealed those who were in his little black book. I revealed who was on the FAA manifest, thus determining who it is who had flown on the Lolita Express to Epstein's Island. I revealed Epstein's key role in providing the seed money for the Clinton Global Initiative and the Clinton Foundation. I demonstrated how both Bill and Hillary Clinton visited Epstein's Island after Epstein had already been convicted of one count of solicitation of a minor in Florida, for which Epstein, of course, famously got a slap on the wrist. After the Palm Beach City police chief conducted a 6-month undercover investigation and handed over to the state's attorney of Palm Beach County, Florida, more than enough evidence to convict Jeffrey Epstein for child sex trafficking and child rape. And the state's attorney instead charged Epstein with 1 count of solicitation of a minor, and who, after conviction, was allowed to serve his sentence in the air-conditioned Palm Beach County Jail, where he had his gourmet meals brought in, and where he was only required to be from 10 o'clock at night until 6 o'clock in the morning. Otherwise, he was free to leave jail and go about his nefarious business. I was proud of the fact that in my 2015 book, The Clintons' War on Women, the longest chapter in the book is about Jeffrey Epstein. It is only because of the dogged reporting of a Miami Herald reporter named Julie Brown that the Epstein story would reemerge, that Epstein would ultimately be arrested, and of course we are told that he killed himself in a New York City jail. That's why it's particularly aggravating now that some documentary filmmaker whose real name is Eduardo is on social media saying that a driver on Epstein's Island saw Roger Stone while he was wearing a bull mask, but we could tell from the Nixon tattoo on his back that it was Stone, and that he was sexually assaulting a 15-year-old. This is not only an outrageous lie, but it's a defamatory. You can say a lot of things about me, but that crosses a line. That's not a political opinion. That's accusing me of a crime. And therefore, I will probably have no choice but to go out and hire a lawyer and sue Eduardo for these lies. Now, on this show, we've talked a lot about pizza. That's because I love pizza. That's because New York City, under Eric Adams, is attempting, through regulation, to close down all of the wood and coal-fired pizza ovens in New York City. And if he can't close them down, then he's going to impose emission controls on them to make them highly ineffective. You see, it's the heat that allows you to cook a pizza quickly to get the exact consistency. So we've talked at length here about some of the great pizza emporiums in New York City. We're talking about Lombardi's, who I believe is the oldest pizza joint in town. John's of Bleecker Street, my personal favorite, where they pre-cook the pie with cheese and then for the end they put the sauce on, pop it back in the oven. Unbelievable. DeFara's, Tantano's, Una Pizza Nebelladana, Lucali, L&B Spumoni Gardens, Baby John's Pizza in Little Italy. The list goes on and on. See, pizza is like sex. Even when it's bad, well, it's still pretty good. But the other night, I was working late, and I had a frozen pizza from Pizza 84 out in, I believe it's Brooklyn, in the oven. I was hungry, so I popped that baby in. Was pretty darn good. Decided to post a picture of it on X, formerly known as Twitter, whereupon Eduardo, the documentary filmmaker, decided that my posting of a pizza was somehow a reference to child sex trafficking. Folks, when I write about and talk about pizza, I'm talking about the Italian delicacy and nothing else. We had a great conversation about New Haven-style pizza right here on the Roger Stone Show a week ago, because New Haven-style pizza, thinking of the greats, Frank Pepe's, Sally's of New Haven, the Spot, well, that's a special type of pizza, but it has nothing whatsoever to do with child sex trafficking, nor is it a symbol of anything other than great food. This same lunatic, Eduardo, and a number of others say that Roger Stone and his friend General Michael Flynn were seeking somehow to dislodge or supplant President Donald Trump in his 2024 campaign. They go so far as to say that Stone and Flynn planned the January 6th riots. All of that is, of course, nonsensical. I did tell General Flynn that if for some reason Donald Trump was unable to run for president legally, or he decided not to run for president, then I thought General Flynn was potentially a stronger candidate than, say, Nikki Haley or Ron DeSantis or any of the other would-bes who ran. See, that's called a contingency plan. That's called Plan B. But the idea that we ever intended to supplant Donald Trump is, of course, QAnon nonsense. You know, there's a lot of good people in QAnon, and by that I mean well-meaning patriots who love their country. Sometimes they buy into theories that aren't accurate. Everybody's entitled to believe what they think, but you're not entitled to accuse people falsely of egregious and ugly crimes. I'm Roger Stone. This is The Roger Stone Show at 77 WABC, and we'll be right back.
It's The Roger Stone Show on 77 WABC.
Welcome back. I'm Roger Stone on this beautiful Sunday. I'm watching the presidential candidacy as an independent of Robert F. Kennedy, and it seems quite schizophrenic to me. Roughly a week ago, surprisingly, in an interview on CNN, what's surprising is that they even allowed him to be interviewed. In the past, they've interviewed him, but they've heavily edited his interview. Robert F. Kennedy Jr., now an independent candidate seeking to get on the ballot, said that no, it was Joe Biden who was a greater threat to democracy than Donald Trump. He pointed to the efforts by the Biden governmental entities such as the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security to actively pressure the social media platforms to censor and cancel narratives they disagree with. But then, more recently, Robert Kennedy said a second Trump presidency would be bad for the country. He says President Trump has had his chance. He's failed. He said he drained the swamp. Instead, he filled the swamp with government and corporate insiders. Said that Trump would cut the deficit but bloated it. Went on and on to attack Donald Trump. I'm not really sure what Robert Kennedy thinks he is doing. This idea that there is some group in the middle is not accurate based on an examination of the polling. You see, the intensity of Trump's support is unlike I have ever seen. The Trump voter, 9 out of 10 Trump voters say they are certain to vote for him, where only 7 out of 10 Biden voters say they are certain to vote for him. So the softness is among Biden voters and among Democrats. The reason that's significant, of course, is that Robert Kennedy selected as his running mate a very wealthy woman from California named Nicole Kidman. Now, Nicole Shanahan, Ms. Shanahan seems to be your garden variety progressive. She actually said on X, formerly Twitter, that she didn't really realize the country had a illegal migration problem until she recently visited the border. She has donated very heavily to the Defund the Police movement in California. She admits that she is vaccinated and triple boosted, which seems to be totally contrary to the signature issue of Robert Kennedy, who is a critic of the safety and effectiveness of the COVID-19 vaccination. So it appears to me that the reason that Robert Kennedy selected Nicole Shanahan as his running mate was the money. You see, Ms. Shanahan was once married to Sergey Brin, who was the founder of Google, and who, after their divorce, laid billions of dollars on the former Mrs. Brin. This tells me that Robert Kennedy's efforts to get on the ballot are not going very well. You see, the only way you can do that, remembering that the process by which independents get on the ballot is written by Republicans and Democrats together in the 50 states, it's extraordinarily arcane, difficult, and labor-intensive, as well as legally complicated, and the time will come when your volunteers no longer want to collect signatures and you have to pay petition circulators. So Robert Kennedy announced this week that he had ended any conversations with the Libertarian Party, won't be using them to get on the ballot. Had he pursued either the Green or the Libertarian Party nomination, I think he almost immediately would have been on the ballot in 30 states. So the onboarding of Nicole Shanahan shows me that, well, Robert Kennedy, a man who talks constantly about special interests and not selling out, looks to me like he sold out for the money. Again, the trial by Alvin Bragg will continue this coming week. Today on The Roger Stone Show, criminal defense attorney Jesse Bunnell will join us to break that down. And then last week, you may remember right here on The Roger Stone Show, criminal defense lawyer and Trump impeachment lawyer David Schoen said that he thought it was imperative that the Trump defense call former federal prosecutor and respected criminal defense lawyer Robert Costello to testify. That's because Mr. Costello previously represented Michael Cohen, and that Cohen revealed to him, both verbally and in a number of emails, that he had no damaging material regarding Donald Trump, and that Donald Trump was not involved in the hush money payments to Stormy Daniels. There's a lot of controversy about this because Mr. Costello told the New York Post late last week that he was more than willing to testify. The privilege had been waived, but Costello said he hadn't heard from the Trump lawyers. Then by Friday, The Hill reported that indeed Costello was on their list as a potential witness, probably a rebuttal witness. Very, very good news. Lastly today, is New Jersey in play? Meaning, could Donald Trump carry the Garden State? Mike Crispy of Last Call with Mike Crispy on Rumble joins us for that segment. That's an idea that warms my heart with Donald Trump's recent appearance in Harlem, his being pinned down in New York, in the New York, New Jersey media market, and his recently announced plan to visit Wildwood, New Jersey. I think both New York and New Jersey could be in play for Donald Trump this November. We got a lot of ground to cover today. It's the Roger Stone Show, folks. And as Jackie Gleason would say, stand by because away we go.